MVPs. So, yeah, suck on that.
That's a good stat there, Magnum.
Yeah,
That's
like,
the stat of the week.
yeah, I mean, it's like Georgia, the University of Georgia has the most representatives as far as Super Bowl MVPs. They've got three.
And, you know, when I start, this is something that it just gets me almost all irritated and aggravated all over again. But yeah, going back to Todd Grantham, it was 2 or 3 seasons ago. Our defense was just, you know, awful. And then we had 7 starters drafted in the NFL off of that defense. And I'm looking around and I'm going, if we had 7 NFL players on our defense, then why were they letting us down constantly? And I guess it was Grantham.
That's exactly what it was, because I mean we touched on it. From what I've seen of the defense while Grantham was there, they seemed ill prepared. Like they didn't know what they were doing. A lot of times, if they knew the scheme, they were out of position. Like you saw a lot of it. They were pointing fingers at each other, like like you're supposed to do this. No, you were supposed to do this. It's like they look lost, man, and that falls directly on the coaches. And I guarantee you, Pruitt ain't gonna be having that, because being on 3 straight national title teams, of course 2 with Alabama and this last year with Florida State, he knows what it takes. Okay, Todd Grantham, was a joke. He obviously don't have what it takes. But Pruitt has been there. He's been part of the championship teams. He knows what it's going to take, and I guarantee you he's not going to have that crap. If somebody don't know what if somebody out there don't know what they're doing, he's going to pull them and put somebody out there who does.
Yeah, I mean, especially, when it comes to our secondary this year, it's not going to surprise me at all to see 9 or 10 different guys play back there. I mean, it's pretty obvious that we don't have any, studs back there, with the exception, hopefully we talked earlier, hopefully Swan can step up this year. But, if we have a guy out there that's just not cutting it, I mean, I don't see what the harm would be in putting another guy in there. I mean, we've got to find a way for the secondary not to cost us any games this year. And I'm going to, until I'm proven otherwise, I'm just going to put my trust in Pruitt that he knows what he's doing. He's proven it everywhere he's been. And hopefully, he can be the missing ingredient and go ahead and turn this defense around.
And one of the things I think that, and if I'm thinking about it, I seriously think Pruitt is thinking about it. Now, we talked a little bit about Leonard Floyd. Man, have this guy constantly on that quarterback, like all day, man. I mean, blitz him up the middle, blitz him around the edge. Utilize Leonard Floyd's speed. Man, that guy is fast. Utilize him. I mean, this guy can cause so much havoc, and that will take so much pressure off the secondary if we can constantly get pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, if the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball in a hurry, I'd much rather see somebody wide open 5 yards down the field because the quarterback had to get rid of the ball in a hurry than I would see somebody wide open 25 yards down the field because they got all day to throw the ball. So, Ray Drew, Leonard Floyd, I don't think we talked this time about Lorenzo Carter, true freshman, supposed to be the real deal.
He's supposed to be a
Yeah, so hopefully we get some productivity out of him this year. But this is always the most exciting time of the season for me because right now we're undefeated, and the possibilities are endless. And as a Georgia fan, you always have that hope that this could be the year, and we have just as good a shot this year as we've had, any year under Rick. And, my fingers are crossed that we can get things off on the right foot against Clemson, and then have an off week to see where we're at before we got to travel up to Columbia. And, right now I'm more concerned about the Carolina game than I am the Clemson game. Obviously, I want to win the Clemson game, but if we lose the Clemson game, our season is by no means over, especially with the 4-team playoff this year. I can see all kinds of scenarios where we lose to Clemson and still wind up in the 4-team playoff. With that being said, I don't expect a loss to Clemson, and I definitely don't want to lose to Clemson. But these first 2 games of the season are just huge for us this year.
Oh, definitely. And the second game, especially, going into Columbia, where they haven't lost since 2011, so it will be a tough environment to play in. And you know what this season reminds me of, man? Let's go all the way back. Let's go all the way back to 1998. Tennessee loses Peyton Manning, and in comes T. Martin, a relatively, unknown guy. Goes on to win a national title. I mean, I'm not going to say we're going to do that, but I'll look at us in that same situation where we lose our star quarterback and an unknown comes in. Of course, we know him, but he just really hasn't played much. But he has so many weapons, around him to where we don't need him to be that Aaron Murray. I see us in that situation. I mean, I don't know if you looked at us like that, but that's what I see.
Wait a second, one second, because I was here during the whole T. Martin era, and that guy was no joke. You can hit him and knock him out, and the next play he'll turn around and throw a touchdown like nothing.
Yeah, I mean he actually turned out to be really good, But what
All right, that's weird. That is the first time I've heard that. Are you still there, Magnum?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm here.
All right, go back to what you were saying. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, but no, I see us in that similar situation because just like T. Martin was a new starter, so is Hudson Mason, but T. Martin had weapons around him. So does Hudson Mason. So that's what I'm saying. I look at us in a similar, situation as Tennessee was in '98. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really is going to come down to Hudson Mason and, what can he do, play within his limitations, whatever his limitations might be, just stay within himself. We talked about it a lot earlier. Don't make mistakes, just don't lose us any games. But I'm excited about the season and, I think it's going to be a good one. I'm confident. I'm more confident this year than I have been in a lot of years past. And I'm anxious to see us out on the field and see what we can do.
Yeah, that Mason guy could end up a lot better than you think he is too.
Well, that's exactly right. He's on the Davey O'Brien watch list. As a matter of fact, he's I guess a lot of people think highly of him. I mean, you don't make it to that list and be garbage.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
I trust him. I have faith in him. Until he shows me he can't do it, I believe that he can.
Well, I'm just hoping that we don't have a repeat of the Joe Cox syndrome. Let's not have that again.
Yeah. That was terrible. Joe Cox, I don't think ever should have been given a scholarship. I don't know how much of what you hear is true or not, but I guess his daddy and his granddaddy and his great-granddaddy and his uncle and his great-uncle and his great-great-uncle and blah, blah, blah all went to the University of Georgia, yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, that was a mistake to play him for sure.
As bad as Joe Cox was, he wasn't as bad as that Joe Tereshinski. Remember him?
Oh yeah, that was
a joke
that we've had under the Rick era for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a slap joke. But you know what? I don't see Hudson in that same league. I mean, Joe Cox and Joe Tereshinski, they were just a couple guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. They couldn't even throw the football. I mean, Joe Cox would throw touchdowns, but it would be to the other team. I mean, he was a pick waiting to happen, and I don't see Hudson doing that. I mean, we look at the starts Hudson had last season, and from what I saw, I mean, use the Georgia Tech game, for example, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. Now, those are way better numbers than Joe Cox. I mean, I don't see us just completely falling off. I mean, those are Aaron Murray type numbers.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe something's wrong with me. I don't know, but I look around and I say, okay, last year he was thrown into the fire. He wasn't expecting it.
Exactly. That you just hit it like nail on the head, man.
And now,
his first start was on the road, big-time rivalry game, and he gets the win.
He's had 6 months now where he knows he's the starter. He knows he's the guy. And I look at who he was throwing the ball to and handing the ball off to last year, and then I look at who he's going to be throwing the ball to and handing the ball off to this year, and where is the drop-off? There's not one. So
well, actually,
it's no reason
better this year because by the time when Hudson was playing with Tech and against Nebraska, he was playing with second and third string guys, and now he's going to have the first game healthy.
That's my point. So now you have a Hudson Mason with 2 full games of experience, 2.5 games of experience, some familiar weapons around him, plus all the returning injuries from last year back this year. So I don't see any way where he's not at least the quarterback that he was against Georgia Tech and Nebraska. And if that's as good as he gets is what he was against Georgia Tech and Nebraska, I think that's good enough for this year, for what we have around him. Now, I think he's going to be better because he's had time to prepare and, all these things that go into the off season and mentally knowing that he's the guy. So I think he is going to get better. But even if all he is what he was against Georgia Tech and Nebraska, I think that's good enough for this year.
Oh, I mean, I agree 100%. And the thing I look at is, those were his first starts. Okay, he's got some experience under his belt now, and he's got these number one. He'll have all the number ones with him now. Of course, I think the main question is, I know we talked about Mitchell re-injuring his knee. I think they said that he should be ready to go by week 1. We don't know, but regardless, he's surrounded by all these weapons, and for him to come out and play like he did on the road, his first start, and throw 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those are Aaron Murray-ish type numbers. I mean, Aaron Murray did that on a regular basis, and he did it in his first start. I mean, granted, it was Georgia Tech, but Hudson was playing with a lot of guys he's not really accustomed to playing with.
Right.
I mean, he did something that was really impressive. Now, if he could do that with second and third stringers, I mean, what do you think he could do with the first stringers?
Yeah, second and third stringers, no experience. And the thing about the no experience, sorry about that. The thing about, I mean, not only did he have no experience, but, I mean, I understand these people say what they're supposed to say, like, oh, yeah, even though I'm the backup, I prepare every week, like I'm going to play, you never know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Mentally, when you're a backup, you just don't expect to be thrown in there like that. So you can't tell me that he prepared. He's preparing differently this year than he prepared last year. You can't convince me that he didn't. There's a big difference between knowing you're going to start and just getting thrown in like that. And so I think he's going to definitely be improved over what we saw last year, which was not a disappointment last year. I mean, I think he outperformed his expectations in those 2 games last year, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And, let's use this Nebraska game. Now, he put us in position to win. He threw a perfect pass to Artie Lynch, and he dropped the ball, which ended the game for us. Hudson Mason did everything he did. The pressure was on him. He delivered a perfect ball. Of course, the pass was dropped, and we ended up losing, 24-19? If we could have, got it into the end zone, we would have won that game. I mean, Hudson did everything he was supposed to help us win. He did not lose us that game.
Yeah. I think it was hard for me to get up for that bowl game last year, and I just the way everything happened last year with, the injuries and, the loss to Vanderbilt and, the loss to Missouri and being out of it, and then it gets sort of topped off with the loss to Auburn. And, we came back and beat, Georgia Tech to end the season. But, Georgia sets out every year to win the SEC East. And when they lost to Auburn, I love those guys, and I know none of them would tell you that they put it in the tank. But, it was hard for your fans to get up for that Nebraska game after the way everything unfolded last year with just heartbreaking injuries and devastating loss to Auburn and things like that. I feel like, I feel like we're a better team than Nebraska, and we probably beat them 9 out of 10 times. And I don't put much weight in what I saw in that Nebraska game.